There we go. Now we're back. Thank you, Crystal. So, I'm going to really get up in here. It's going to take me a second. I couldn't do this while the other thing was going because it just never works for me when I try. Go. And let's go ahead and do this. I want to turn down the exposure and turn up the gain. I always find that makes it look a little bit better. You can kind of see that, can't you? There we go. You should be able to see what I'm doing. There. Okay, so now we are ready to go. Welcome back. We are going to be doing a parking tutorial. So over here, I have got a picture that we will be working on showing you how I do my parking. I'm actually going to be showing you several versions. And we'll kind of see how you can, that way you can see which one you like the best. So I'm going to fix this a little bit. There we go, that's better. So we've got our thing right here, our mountains, which I believe this is what I used before. So first I'm going to set this so that you guys can see the symbols. I don't know how well you're able to actually see them, but you can see the symbols now, or at least see that there are symbols. And the first way that I'm going to show you is the way that I had originally showed on this channel a million years ago. Let's go ahead and try to get that shadow out of there. I don't think that's just gonna happen. That's just not gonna happen. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to show you the way I showed you guys originally. I don't have a back magnet. I don't have enough of them over here. And that is, you can either go in columns or you can go in rows. Another way I found actually that is a little bit better for taking tension lines out is to go diagonally in blocks. And I kind of like that. I've been doing that lately when I've been parking. But all of those are pretty much the exact same way that you would do it. Another way that you can do it is to do entire rows or entire columns at a time. Another way you can do it is to just do individual squares but one row at a time, which I have always found really weird. And then there's diagonal stitching, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I will try to show you that as well. So first we're going to look at just the kind of the basic way that I do it, which I will show you by going, I'll show you by going in columns, I think, just because it's a pretty easy way to do it. But just remember, it's the same method for going in columns, rows, or doing diagonal blocks. It just depends on where you like to go. But this is kind of a small piece, so columns would work really well. And a question I've been getting a lot lately, which is one of those questions that doesn't really, it doesn't strike, or it doesn't seem like it would be one of those questions that I would get, and apparently it's one I overlooked during the last one, is how do you start? Which is why we're starting brand new. The answer, which might seem a little bit flippant, is you start exactly as I showed you, because each block you're starting new. So this time we will properly start new though, and we are going to start in the upper left hand corner. I like to start in the left. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I stitch left-handed, so everything stays out of my way that way. So we're going to start in the upper left, and over here in the upper left, I don't know, can you guys, oh, you guys can see my mouse vaguely. There is a coffee cup, or like a little mug, so that's what we're going to highlight on the pattern. And so now you guys can see where all of those stitches are. And so that is 3768, which is 37 right there. It's this kind of perhaps no surprise, they're all going to be kind of blue colors. And we are just going to get a slightly larger piece than that, I think. Oh, that'll have to do. Okay. And in this case, you can stitch however you like. I'm going to be doing a loop start with 2 strands. So here is where there is a slight difference depending on whether you decide to stitch in rows or in columns, which seems a little bit odd, but there's a very good reason for this. So we are going to be stitching in columns this way, which means that the individual blocks will be stitched in rows. So that is because when we do this, you want each subsequent block. I muted myself again. No, I didn't. My mic is coming through. So each subsequent block will cover up what's going on in the previous one. No, it's a loop start with, there's 2 strands. So we are going to do this first stitch right here. Just like this. Get out of the way, there's some hair on there. So we've done our first stitch, which is in that corner right there. And I'm going to mark that off as done. So now, because even though there is one right next to it, I'm going to stitch across the entire top row. So we're going to do this entire thing right here. Three. So we're going to skip 1, 2, 3. I did not tack this down very well, but oh well. And you typically want to do the entire stitch at once. If you're the kind of person that likes to do a half stitch and then go back, you will actually be kind of making some more problems for yourself. So we've done that entire top row. Just like that. And then I'll highlight those. So we've done those ones. Now we're going to come back the other way and do that one. One, and then we'll go right here. So we've done that one. And then we do this one. It's very flobbery fabric, I regret. And then we have this one. So we've done the entire second row. Right there. We're going to mark those off as done. And we're only staying within this block of 10 by 10. We're not going elsewhere. So now we're going to do this. The third row. 1, 2. And parking is a really good method for these pieces that have a lot of confetti, where having a lot of threads being tied off, started, restarted, is going to create more problems in the long run. This can also help you keep track of where your stitches are as you go. If you're a landmark stitcher, working in these little 10 by 10 areas can really help you keep track of everything. So we're going to do that one. And then we've got one right here. And then we have one more right here. So I have now done all of the stitches of this color within this block. Now you can park in the next one, or you can choose to be able to skip over a few blocks. I typically, if I can, I will skip over, or if I have to, I will skip over up to 2 blocks. So if I were doing this one and there were none of this color in this block or this block, I would go down to here. Otherwise, I would end the thread. We do have some stitches in this 3rd block though. So what we want to do is we want to look for the next stitch that is closest to the top left stitch in the block. So the top left stitch in this case is this guy right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse up there, but it is this one right here. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches down and 4 across. So we will do that. So this one is 0. The top left one is 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. The top one is 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then just pull it through and leave it there. And we are done with that color. We are not going to touch it. Let's highlight everything off over here. I want to stop highlighting, and we are going to go to the next color that is closest to the topmost left stitch, which is the one right next to it, right here. That's the one we want to go to now. So that one, which for some reason when I unhighlight, it goes back to blocks. That's not what I want. Is this one, which is 312. I don't know why these aren't in order. I will make them in order. Let me do that. There. I don't know why every time I make a change it takes that off. So we are going to go to 312 now and highlight that. So put this one away. And pop over and grab ourselves some 312. This is a disaster. They always are. I don't know why. There we go. I would like one a little bit bigger, please. I would like one a little bit bigger, please. Actually, no, I don't think I do. I think that one was fine. You kind of have to be careful to pay attention to what is on your fabric as well, because you can see generally if you're going to need to park or not. So this one, we're going to do the same thing. Let's fold it over to get 2 strands and then do a loop start. And here we go. We're just going to start in that one that is closest to the top left, and we are going to stitch in rows once more. So there's that one. Okay. And oof, interestingly, there are 2 very similar symbols I've just noticed. Although luckily stitching digital kind of takes that away as a problem. And again, we're only going to be sticking within this little 10 by 10 square. So we get to the end, even though this color does continue into the next one, and we're not going over there. So then we do 3, right here. And even if there are stitches that are closer, going in rows, or if you're stitching across in rows, you would be stitching in columns here. Stitching in the opposite direction to where you're parking, or I guess the opposite orientation to where you're parking, helps take all of these little parked threads down here and it tacks them down underneath. If you were stitching in the same orientation, so we're stitching the blocks in columns, if we were stitching in columns, these wouldn't get tacked down as easily. They would have a better chance to kind of slip through. So we are going to avoid that by just stitching in rows and not stitching where it might be seen as being a little bit more convenient. So there we go, there's that. Come through. There we go, there's that one. Yes. And we're nearly running out of thread, but that's fine. We've got 2 more left. One, 2. And if we look at our pattern, now that we're done with this, there are no stitches of this color here. There are no stitches of this color here. There are no stitches of this color here. So I'm going to park this off over here. Just kind of go right there. And we are done with that one. And we know that we're done with that one because it's not attached to anything we're stitching on. Once we get to within a few blocks of it, we can cut that off and it won't be a problem. You just kind of want to have that where it's going to be out of your way and you won't confuse it for something that's parked. So we'll go ahead and mark off everything over here again. Unhighlight it. Tell this stupid thing that I want to stay there and go find the next one, which will be this one right here, because that's the one that is the closest to the top left, which is, I wish there was a select in this program. There really isn't in the way that I would like there to be. It's an arrow facing that direction. It's this one, I believe. Yes. And I will show you how we go until we get to the next one. And then once we start on the next block, we will switch over and I will show you a different method. But these should go pretty darn quickly. Come on, you. Ew, that's interesting. Okay. So the next color is 3807. Which is, surprise, another kind of blue color. And we're just going to do the same thing. There we go. Two strands with the loop start. And you always want to start with the stitch that is closest to the top left, which is right here. So there's that right there. and that. We could continue with that color, but that is outside. So that's why we've chosen a nice small little strand of thread, because there's none in any of the next ones. So we're done with this one for a while as well. We're just going to cut that one nice and short and put everything back. Highlight, 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 highlight. The next one is this kind of diamond color. So instead of unhighlighting it and losing my symbols, let's just find the diamond, which is right here. And there's a lot of this one, and that's good. So 3807, we're going to replace that with 322. Can you guess what color it is? Okay, and this one I do want a nice big long piece, because there's a lot of it. I want an even longer piece because there's a lot of it. And I can see that not only am I going to be parking this, I'm going to be continuing to use it for many, many blocks. Ugh, crap. One, two. Put that over there. And grab ourselves a strand. Okay. So again, start with the stitch that is closest to the top left. Boosh. Right there. And loop, bitch. There it goes. And we're just going to stitch this entire block's worth of these colors. So this one might take a minute. And the reason why it doesn't really matter so much that we're parking these ones off to the side, our little fishtails, because there's more room for them to get buried. Whereas with these ones, we're parking them so close that we want them to have every chance they can get to get buried. But when you end your threads off a little bit farther away, they'll have more of an opportunity. Another thing you can do is not end them off on the same row where the last stitch was. So if you end them off at kind of a diagonal area, it will get them a little bit stuck in there better as well. But you really want to be focusing on burying the ones that are parked closely. So that's why we do it that way. Well, that's why I do it that way. Because there are some methods that are just a little bit bonkers, but this is the one that I find that I like the most. So while I'm doing this, this one is going to take a little bit of time, because there is a lot of it. Whatever you're doing, I hate it. Are there any questions up to this point? What is going on? Oh, because it's tied up. There we go. Why are you doing that? It's not even tied up. It's just being stupid. Actually, I know why it's being stupid. Unrelated, I have said in the past that you don't want to put your floss on bobbins unless you know you're going to be using it. And I will show you why. This is why. And this is why sometimes your floss will get more tangled up than you expect it to, because the bobbin crimps up your floss. So that's why I don't recommend putting every single skein of every color that you have. I just have enough for a full stash, or a full kit, basically. There we go. You can use the loop start. You can use a waist knot. You can do it anyway. I find that the loop start for this is the least invasive, I think is the best way to put it. Because the whole point really of parking is that you're going to be doing this on projects that have a lot of color changes to begin with. It's not really necessary for very simple projects where you're only going to have several color changes. But these projects like this one that have a lot of colors crammed into a single block, these ones are the ones that benefit the most from parking, and they are the ones that get hurt the most from ending and starting threads again and again. So by having the loop start on here, you're not adding anything new to the back. There's no extra threads from waist knots. There's no knots from a method where you might just tie a knot on the back, which some people say you're never supposed to do that, but you know what? Some people find that the easiest, so whatever. But it's less about the back looking nice and more about not having to force your needle through 800 different strands of floss. I think we've all worked on projects like that where the back is just so chunky that you can't get the needle through. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Just trying to untwist my floss here real quick. And it's twisted up in 2 different directions. That's fun. Fun. Kindly stop. So I untwisted it one way and it just twisted it another way instead. Yeah, you can do a tack start. You can also end on pin stitches. I find that a pin stitch is just a fishtail with extra steps, though. There we go. And another little tip is to always stitch down into what you've already stitched. So you can see that I'm coming up from the bottom of the stitch and then going down through the top. And in situations like this, where you might not be able to pick one or the other, you might just want to pick which one looks like would be the better or the easier one to do. So if stitching down through the bottom one would be better because that top half of the stitch is a bit loose, you could stitch into that. But typically stitching down into what you've already stitched will keep the stitches looking a little bit more even and a little nicer, I have found. Yeah, pin stitch, I've done a tutorial on that one, and it's a very simple one that doesn't really require a follow-up. You can find that one in the tutorial playlist. I don't know, it might have been attached to a different tutorial because there were a couple where the tutorial was so small I couldn't really justify doing it on its own, so it might be one of those ones that is tacked on to a different tutorial as well. I can't remember. But it's just a different way of ending your stitch that is basically just a fishtail with extra steps. And we've got a lot of this, but that's good. We're about halfway there. This is where editing comes in handy. Unfortunately, I don't think I can... I might be able to trim this down for the video. I'm not sure. We'll see. The video may wind up just being insanely long. So yeah, just to fill that time, any other questions while we do this? This is the one that will be the longest, though, to film. The other two, or the other ones I'm going to show you, will be pretty easy. But this one, just because you're doing 100 stitches at a time effectively, it does mean that they take a little bit longer to film. Okay, where are we going? We're going all the way over here. There we go. Oof. And I'm doing this on 16 count, I believe. And this also does work with tent stitch. I'm doing this on 16 count so that you guys can see it. I would have done it on 14, but I didn't have any decently sized pieces and I didn't want to cut a new piece. This was already cut. And who knows, I may actually finish this one this time. This is one I've started many times. I've used it for both parking tutorials, because the parking tutorial was actually one of the very first things I put on my channel, and it was just so poorly made that I redid it. And I still didn't like how it was redone. The sound quality has just always been horrendously bad. Let me tilt that a little bit more. There we go, right here. Okay, yes. So you may have seen a parking tutorial from me in the past, and it may have even been this exact same picture, because I'm pretty sure this is what I've used every time. And I do find, because with this method you are stitching in blocks, you will get tension lines with this if you are stitching on hardanger or on an even weave fabric. So that's why you might want to use other methods for even weave or hardanger, and that's why I'm going to show you those other methods. I do also find that stitching your blocks diagonally can kind of help get rid of that. So what I would have done is, you kind of have to take a little bit more care with that. I wouldn't have just automatically gone down to this one. Typically for that, I would kind of figure out, okay, where was the next one if I were to go down here, and then I'd go to that one, then that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And I find doing it in blocks of about 3 or 4 columns works best. Trying to go diagonal across the entire thing just gets overwhelming very, very quickly. It can be done, but I don't recommend it for your first time. But diagonal stitching seems to be taking off because it's a good way to park on even weave that would otherwise show tension lines. So I will kind of show you that as well. It's not something I have a lot of experience with, but I might as well show you. Just because I don't really park on even weave. Generally, if there's something that I know I'm going to have to park, I will put it on Ada, because Ada shows tension lines. Ada's a lot more Ada shows tension lines less. It's a lot more forgiving. Okay, we are getting very close to done with this color for now. But I just want to get into the next block and show you what I need to be doing. Why is my mic vibrating? It shouldn't be. It doesn't sound happy. Okay, well, let me get to the end of this and see. I don't want sound issues during this. I hate disrupting tutorials, but if there's a sound issue, I need to. Okay. Oh, if it's only for a second and it goes away, I really don't like to disrupt tutorials because that does make it very difficult to follow in the future. So we're doing this last row here. So we've got 2 stitches. And then it looks like we've got 3 more colors. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's that. And then we'll do these 2, and then we will park it. And that was the biggest color in this block, so that it should start to go quickly again from here. Parking does, I find, take a little bit longer sometimes, but it can also make up for that speed because you don't wind up constantly going back to your bobbins. So we're going to park this one right here because that is the top leftmost stitch. So there we go. There is that. I'm going to rewind up this bobbin and then we'll go on to the next one. So there's that. So this is why I've been meaning to do this tutorial for months, and this is why it never gets done, because they do take a very long time to film and then a very long time to edit. So that's why it just never happened. I was having a really hard time justifying the amount of work for a video that I knew YouTube was just going to bury. Because, ooh, I don't know where you're from, but you're not from here. Okay, well, you're trash. Because I know a lot of you guys haven't actually been getting my videos in your sub boxes. And that's nothing I can control. Okay, so put that back. Uh, 322. Let's highlight these. Boosh, 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 boosh. And now the next one that is closest to the top left is that little guy right here, 161, which is right here. Okay. This one looks like it's a pretty small one. They're all pretty small ones from here. Okay, and again, we start with the one that is closest to the top left, so this one. The trick to parking is consistency. If you keep doing everything the same way every single time, it gets a lot easier and a lot, you'll remember what you're doing a lot more quickly. So we go here. And then we go here. So it looks like we do 3, skip 1, and then do 1. And get caught on the edge of the fabric and pull everything out of whack. That's always fun. This is very starchy fabric. 1, 2, come on you, 3. And then 1 right here. And you'll kind of start to notice that when you stitch like this, the color will fill in going down the column or across the page, depending on whether you decide to do it in columns or in columns or rows. So we go there. And then this is the last one for this color. And it looks like we're skipping a block again and going right here. 1, 2, 3. Yes. So there we go. That's where that one is parked. And you'll start to kind of get a collection going over here. For some of them, it will be a very big collection. Others will be a little bit more manageable. This one, I think, will be a little bit more manageable. It says there's 44 colors. That's not bad. What the heck am I looking for? I'm looking for that. That one's facing up. There we go. So now I need 931. And oh boy, there's a lot of that. Excellent. Excellent, because I was really hoping there would be more than one color in there, and there absolutely will be. That's nice. So we'll put this one away. 161. On the other side, we have 931. And I'm just gonna pull off a great big piece because this one's gonna be used for a very long while. You can probably see there. Okay. Here we go. Loop start, thread the needle. let it get all tangled up because you caught it on the edge of the fabric again. Very starchy fabric I'm using today. Okay. Start closest to the top left stitch as possible. And when you're stitching, here's another thing. When you're stitching in columns, prioritize top over left. So if we have this one here that is on the left edge, but if there's a top one that is over here like 3 stitches in, you would start on the top one before you started on the leftmost one. If you're stitching in rows, you would prioritize the left over the top. And that is, again, just to make sure that you're always stitching in pretty much the same direction and you're not pulling thread in weird directions along the back. So here we go. Right there. There it is. If I can get it through there. There. Okay, there we go. And you can really, I think, start to see where this is going by now, I think. So we'll do that last little color and then I will show you how to do the next block. And then once we've done the next block, I will show you the other methods. And the other methods will be a lot quicker to show. This one is the longest because you have to kind of do the entire block at once to progress. So there we go, there's that one. And then there is this one, if I can get it through. So there's 1, 2. Looking around this camera. I normally put the camera somewhere else, but I wanted this to be as straight on as possible. 3. And then we have 2 more on the bottom. And at this point, no matter which direction I stitch, I'm stitching into something I've already stitched into. So there's that. And then we park this one right here. So that one's ready for next time. Mark these off. Boosh, boush, bow, 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 bow. Now we want this spade looking thing. So we're going back to the front for 334. And interestingly enough, okay, well, that's fine. I just noticed something very weird about this block. But we will burn that bridge when we get to it. 334. 334. Yep. Yep. Oops. That's fine. Okay, come on, you. And we're just going to do the same thing, bump the camera so it goes all over the place. And top left. And then we're just gonna stitch in our rows. Okay. There is that. I'm not really taking care to railroad or anything right now. So the stitches are pretty messy, but messy stitches are fine for right now. Doesn't matter too much. So now we're gonna finish this off. Where do I park you? Right there. So when I first heard about parking, it was from a friend who had only heard of it. She'd never done it. So it took me forever to like really figure out what I was looking for. She didn't even know what it was called. And this is one of those examples of just having weird names, like someone else was confused about the pin stitch earlier, where it might be something you're familiar with, but you just don't know the name. And that is a really big problem with this hobby, is that information is locked up just because you have to know what you're looking up. So there we go. We're going to pin that, or park that. Not pin it, park it. And highlight, 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 highlight. So we are done with that square. Absolutely done with it. Now we are ready to pick up our parked stitches, and you want to do the parked ones first. Now there's a slight problem here, in that the only colors in this block are the parked ones, but that's fine because I can still show you what needs to be shown. So we're going to look at this and see what the parked stitch, or what the parked thread is that is closest to the bottom right. When you're laying down new colors, you want to start from the top left. When you're picking up colors, you want to start from the bottom right. So the one closest to the bottom right in this block right here, they're all up on the top row, but this one is the one that's closest to the right. So that's the one we're going to take. And that is this one right here, if I can find it again. That one. So that's the one we are going to be stitching now. And I'm not going to stitch this entire block. I will just get it going to show you. So a lot of people have asked me in the past, how do you know what the color is? You just have to count. So I can see that I've picked that one up, and I can see that there are 1, 2, 3 stitches to the right of this thread, because you always want to park it in the same spot. I park in the top left of the stitch every single time. I find that just parking in the top left keeps that consistent. So if you want to park in the top right, just remember that you would park it right here on that side. So when you counted the stitches, you have to remember that the 4th one that you would count is the one that you're currently doing. I find the top left easier to keep that consistent, because you know beyond a shadow of a doubt, okay, I'm going to be stitching to the right, So everything that's to the left of this thread is a free stitch. So if we look over here, we've got 1, 2, 3, and then that's the one that I've highlighted, the fourth one. So that's this color. It just really comes down to paying attention and counting is all it really comes down to. So we're going to get going on this one here. Probably not even going to stitch this entire color just because otherwise we'd be here for several hours and I don't want to be here for several hours. So I'm going to do the top row and then just kind of explain what comes next. So I'll have done this. Pretend that I have stitched this entire thing. I've done the entire block and we are all done with the colors on here. So we'll do that. I would then go down here and look for where the next one is on the next block, which is 2 over. So we just park it right there is where we would park it. There's a lot more to do here though, so I'm not going to park it there. I am just going to sneeze and then show you what comes next. So then after we've done that entire block and we've parked it, we'd take the one that comes the next closest to the bottom right, which is that one right there. And that is this color right here. So we'd highlight that. We would stitch everything in that color. Park it where that one needs to be stitched, right down here. And then we would take the next one, which is that one, stitch it all in, park it where it needs to go. Now, with this particular block, after that point, there's no other color. This block only has those 3 colors, which is a little unfortunate. But if there are any colors left that you haven't done yet, if there are blank stitches, you'd go back to the method we did with the first one, start in the upper left hand stitch, and just prioritize that and add in your new colors, parking the ones that you're going to be doing next down below, and then parking the ones over here that are done that you can't drag them over to because you don't want to accidentally just pull it too far. You would... What am I looking for? This one down here. You would just park over here. I'm actually going to park this where it belongs so it's not on the back giving us problems. So I'm just going to put that right there. And I might come back to this and actually finish this one for once. That would be nice. And I dropped my needle in my lap. So that is actually my preferred way to park. I really like this method, so I'm going to actually move over to the other side, out of the way of what we've already done. I don't know why that gets tighter as I move it. It's super annoying. So here we go. There we go. And I am going to come over here and show you what it looks like to do a few other versions. Now, the first one I'm going to show you, ooh, what is that? What is that? Oh, that's black. Okay. I see what it's done. That's weird. So I'm going to show you, we'll just do these last 4 over here. So 1, 2, come on, where's my mouse? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to start on this one right here, which is that one. So we're starting on that stitch right there. And these two are very similar methods. So they both kind of work in very similar ways. So I'll kind of show you them, I guess, at the same time. So what we need right now are 336, which is right here. And this is actually very similar to diagonal stitching. It's just we're going to be doing it first horizontal, and then I'll bounce down and show you diagonal. And this stuff I will probably tear out because I don't want to keep it, but that's fine. So again, I'm starting in the top left. You can choose to start in the right if you want to, and in fact, if you go in rows across, you will wind up wanting to change that up. So when we go down, we're always starting in the top left. Now you can get down to the bottom and choose to just end everything and go up to the top, or you can choose to go down and then come back up, in which case you would always change the direction. So when you go down, you start in the top left. When you come up, you would start in the bottom right, and you would just kind of go backwards. If that is too complicated, get down to the end of your row, end off your threads, and you can do that just by burying the threads underneath, or by taking those threads and kind of parking them up diagonally so that they get buried, and then just start back up on the top and always move in rows, or always move across in columns. So many different ways to do this. I tend to go back and forth myself. I don't like to end it off and then start over. It's just a little bit easier for me personally to keep going. So 1, 2, 3, this is the one we're starting on. So let's go ahead and show you horizontal, one row at a time parking, which you can do this in one of two ways. You can do, or I guess technically three, you can do the entire top row at once. You can do top row sections, so you can do it in like 4x4 block or 4 blocks across and go down, or you can do it one block at a time. It all kind of amounts to the same thing. So we're going to go here, we're going to do our 1 stitch, and there's our 1 stitch right there, because that's the only one we have in the top row. So the next one we have is in the next row down. So there we go. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're just going to park it right there. Boosh, it's parked. Highlight you. Now the next one we have is this one. Some of these symbols are so similar, which is 823. What are you? You're 336. So now we want 823. And we're going to try to find an edge. There we go. That'll work. That will work. Now this is not a way that I like to park. I find this a little too fiddly. But some people really like it. I've seen a lot of Russian tutorials that do it this way, so I have a feeling this is the method that's popular over there. So now we're going to come over here on this one. Try to see around the camera, but I put this at a weird angle, but that's fine. I wanted you guys to be able to see it. If I do this enough time, I'll probably develop X-ray vision. So we're going to do this entire row. And whether you're doing the entire row, a single block, a block of 4, or whatever, this is exactly the same. All that changes is where you stop. So I'm actually going to start coming up from the bottom because I've got a parked thread. Coming up from where you've got a parked thread is also very helpful because it kind of pulls with the parked thread. So we'll come up through that parked thread. There we go. Okay. And we're going to have to pull up through that one twice, so. There we go. And And that one is out of the way. This is why I don't like doing it, because you wind up with a lot of parked threads right in your way. So we're going to have to make a decision. Do we want to do the entire 4 blocks, or do we want to do one by one, or 1 block at a time? I think for this one, this would work better to do 1 block at a time, just because of the way the color spreads out. Because this is easier, this way to do it is easier to always go in the same direction. If you go back and forth with this, the camera's over here. If you go back and forth, it can get incredibly confusing. And we don't want to be pulling thread across the entire thing, because as you can see, that red kind of goes everywhere. So we're just going to do 1 block at a time. So there's this, there's that. That way we're never pulling the thread more than 10 stitches along the back. So there we go, there is that. So we've done these. And now we're going to go ahead and just park it right here. That's where we're parking it, right back underneath where we started. So we will come in here, highlight that. So we've done those ones, and now we'll go to 939, which is our next one. And this is why I don't like this method right here, because we have our 1 little stitch right here of 939. Is it anywhere else in this row? Yes, it is. So now we have to make a choice. Do we want to pull it all the way down here? What is this? 1, 2, 3. Do we want to pull it down 4 blocks to park it down here? Or do we want to park it over here and leave it there for the next one? And that's where it gets kind of a little bit confusing for a lot of people. Because this method doesn't work to go back and forth, we can park it right next to it, and it can just kind of be there, because when we get to the bottom of the row down here off camera, we're going to be ending off all of our threads anyway. So we will go ahead and park that over there. So try to undo all of this. Come on. There we go. This is the really funky single line way of parking. And it works the same way if you go across the entire thing. You can do the entire row. You can do rows in like blocks of 4 or whatever. It works the same way. You just park within that row. You don't do anything else. And that's fun. Ooh, I don't know what that is. My floss has got a tumor. So let's try to remove that without hurting the floss. Once more. Did not get very clean margins. Okay, one more. There we go. Got it off. Surgery was a success. Get off. So we're going to come over here. Do this. And try to get that on there. There it is. And we'll do this one little stitch right here. So there's that one. Now there's no more to do within this block. And I don't want to drag it down all the way to the bottom. We'll just start a new one when we get there. There's that. Oof. And we park it right here. There we go. Now that is out of the way until we get to that next column. So, be gone, thought. There we go. So, now we're going to pick it up, and because, again, we started from over here, if we try to park this one, or if we try to stitch with this one first, we'll wind up just getting tangled up in that other one. So we're going to start with that one, which is this right here. And once again, we only have one color, or one stitch with this color in this row. So we've stitched with that. There we go. And now we go right here. And there we go. We have now parked that one. I think you might be able to see at this point why I'm not fond of this method. I find it just incredibly time consuming. Because now we go back to this one. And we'll just do the same thing. So you pick up your parked threads first, just like last time. Oops, we're gonna have to go down through the parked thread. There's no way out of that. So you pick up your parked threads first, and then you do the new colors. And this is an area where, again, it's going to take us a while to get there, but it's the same principle as before. Pick up your parked threads, do the parked threads, and then once you're out of threads that have been parked, then you pick up the next newest one. So we'll go ahead and do this row, which I believe is, yep, all this color. And I feel like this method, as slow as it is really good for the ones that are just pure confetti. There's not a single real chunk of color anywhere. There's just color everywhere, I think is a good way of putting it. Whereas the method that I did over there with the blocks, that's a good one for where there are kind of areas of concentrated color, but not concentrated enough to make it easy or worth counting. So here we go. We will do this. And like I said, I might just pull that all out or something, because I don't really want to deal with that if I do decide to finish this piece. I don't know. Again, I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. So we've finished off this row, or will after the next stitch. Boosh, boosh. And then where do we park it? We park it over here. Right there. So once again, we would do the same thing where this one is less in the, or this one would be in the way to stitch around. So we'd do this one first, and then we'd pick up this one. And then if there are any gaps, which there aren't for a while, then you'd start picking up the new colors, and you just kind of go like that, and you just work down the column, or you can work down the entire piece. But I most commonly see them doing it 10 by 10. It's not a method I like though. But let's one more time, let's move down here to the bottom. Why not? And we will come down here. Oops, I hate the backward scrolling on this, drives me nuts. 1, 2, 3. So we will start in this one. Nope, wrong one. Is that the correct one? Yes, I think it is. I think. So that's 70, 60, 50, 40. Yeah, I want to start on the one that is the 40. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to start right here in this square. So let's kind of move that a little bit better to center. So now we're just going to very quickly look at diagonal stitching, because that one's been getting very popular as well, and that is just, when it comes down to it, one more form of parking. So let's wind this up and put it back. And there we go. So we are going to start up here again in the corner and find that coffee cup. Where is that coffee cup? There it is. So we're going to start right there. And And I've seen a few different methods for this, so I'm going to show you the one that made the most sense to me. 3768 is right here. We want that one again. Okay. No. And this one is kind of similar, I believe, to this one. I've had more experience with the one up here than I have with diagonal stitching. So this is just, like I said, this is the one that made the most sense to me that I've seen. I've seen a few different methods for this though. And this is the ideal method if you're doing even weave and you don't want those tension lines, because both the methods that I've already shown you will show tension lines on even weave. You just really can't get away from it if you try to stitch in blocks. And the nice thing about the diagonal stitching is that because you're stitching diagonally, you can kind of jog your edges a little bit. So the way that I saw that I really liked, this is the way that made the most sense to me. If I were to ever do this seriously, this is the way I would do it. So again, top left. Like always, we're doing the top left. And we're going to do our stitch. And we're going to just put it right there. Now, this is the only color or stitch of this color within this diagonal. And you can get the heck out of my way. So we'll put that right there. And then there's no more until 2 down here. And you want to prioritize the top or the side. Again, you're always going to be going in the same direction this way. Just because that way will make it just a little bit easier for you to follow. As you get more comfortable with it, you can start alternating the directions you go. It does take a lot more attention, and you have to count a lot more. And how the hell did that happen? Fun! Okay. I love it when somehow it just ties itself into a knot. But there we go. So that is our one stitch on that diagonal. So we're going to mark that off. Go to the next one, which is right here. 803. It's on the other side. So let's put this one away. And ironically, this might have been a better area to start in for the other ones, but oh well. Oh well. 3768. Switch it over and we'll go to 803. Which is right here. Okay. And I want one a little bit bigger than that, please. That one will do. So we can just put you away. Go ahead and grab you. So I want to stitch going diagonally this way. So the next stitch I pick up will be right next to this one. I think I've zoomed out a little bit. Let me zoom in for you guys. There, that's a little bit better, isn't it? So we'll go right next to it, right there. And there are no other stitches in this diagonal. And you would be starting this on the edge of your page. You wouldn't start this in the middle, but I'm just kind of hopping around the page to make it easier to put together. I didn't want to string up a bunch of different fabrics. So we don't have any more on this diagonal, but the next one is right here. And it's a little bit slow to get these going because the diagonals are not going to be very big. But now we go to 311. 311 is up here. There it is. Grab some floss. Grab this one. Put the rest back. Might as well. No need to leave it out. Put you away. Boosh. There we go. And it's going to take, I think, a little bit before we get anything that's within the same diagonal. I should have started in a different place. Oh well. But I think you guys can kind of see where this is going. You should be able to anyway. So we're going to put this one right here. Boosh. Bausch. There we go. Oops. Tied it in a knot. I'm having a lot of problems with knots today. Always what you want during a tutorial, right? And there we go. That's the end of that diagonal. The next one goes 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. My stuff is not at all where I expect it to be, and it's very confusing. So now we've already got a few more parked threads than we might be used to having at this stage. So now we're going to go up to this one, back to 161. And let me just take a look here and see. Yeah, it's not going to be until this row where you start getting the same one. But it is just literally parking on a diagonal. So you're always going to be doing that. It is pretty much the same thing. You're just kind of going on a diagonal. And eventually you'll get to a point where you just have stitch after stitch after stitch that is going to be in the same way. I'm not going to continue to do that though, just because I don't want to waste too much of your time. It's the same concept as this one up here though. Only instead of going in a straight line, you're going in a diagonal line. And with this one, because you're not going to have as many tension lines, because that's the point of it, you can go a lot longer. So you can do the entire piece across if that's what you really want to, or you can decide I'm going to go in diagonal in 5x5 lines or 5x5 blocks. And then what you can do when you're doing that is, so we've done our diagonal and we've got to, we've filled in and we've got to the point where we've done like this across right here. And we've done that. What you can do then is start over and come down here and start doing that and just kind of do those in sections. That way you have a nice jaggedy line. You can also if you really want to, which is kind of a good thing, especially when you're in the middle. So you've got your jaggedy lines, say, up here. And I'm actually going to grab my pen. I'm going to draw this out for you. So you've done, say this is right here. This is the edge of your page. And you've done your diagonal stitching and you've got to that point. And all of that is stitched in. And then you come down here and you decide to do that diagonal as well. So all of this is stitched in. And you're going to say, well, if I do this diagonal here, and I just stitch to that, if you were to stitch to that line right there, you would still get tension lines. So what works is to do your diagonal, start here, start stitching diagonally, and go all the way through here. And then do this entire area. And then do the same over here. You can do your diagonal stitching, get out of my way here, and you can do that. Or you can even say, okay, well now I'm going to have these lines here, so you can do your next section a little bit bigger. And you can do your diagonals in a whole bunch of different sections and shapes and sizes. That way you just completely eliminate those tension lines as much as possible, because right here in this area, that does have the potential to be a tension line. But stitching, if you were to do this entire area, let me grab a different color. If you were to do, and don't worry, these are all washable markers. This will come out. If you were to do this entire thing, doing the whole thing diagonally would absolutely, you can't even see that, would be the best way to avoid tension lines, to just do the whole thing across. This one's only 80 stitches tall. That one might be feasible. If you're doing something that's 600 stitches tall, probably not. So you're going to want to just kind of pick and choose your battles and kind of figure out how you want to do your diagonal lines. Another way you could do them is say, okay, well, here is my one diagonal section right here, and kind of like jog it out in different ways. That way your diagonal lines are not as noticeable. Your lines right here aren't as noticeable, so you can have that and then come, I want to come up here and then do that, and just do it in different shapes is basically the best way to do it. And that's what diagonal stitching is kind of supposed to do. Obviously I don't have time to show you the whole thing, but this was the way that I found that made the most sense to me, was just kind of going all over the place. This is going to be a bitch to stitch on now. But there we go. That is several different ways to stitch parking, which I hope you guys found this helpful. I hope I wasn't too rambly. I know parts of this tutorial drag. I was really trying to avoid that, but there really wasn't any good way to avoid it. I will see if I can cut this down for YouTube. I don't know that I can. I don't even know how long this section is going to be on YouTube, but I've wanted to update this tutorial for a while. Now I have, and I've scribbled all over my fabric, but that's fine. The pen comes out. I can take care of that. It's the washable markers that we reviewed last year. The Crayola ones that washed out really well, so I'm not too bothered. I am not bothered. But yeah, there we go. I wanted to do this for a while. Hopefully this makes sense to people and you can kind of see where it was going. I just I don't have the time to really film the entire thing, and that is the problem with a tutorial for this, is it takes about a month to film a really solid, comprehensive parking tutorial. Maybe I will do some patterns on stream that I do deliberately parked in different methods. That can be something that we do. That way you guys can see the full thing, and those streams do go up on YouTube as well in their entirety. So that might help as well. Let me know if that's something you guys want. But there we go. I have updated my parking tutorial. I've wanted to do this for a while. It kind of got a little bit messy at the end there, but you kind of get the idea. I think that should kind of help. So that is the end of this. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, let me know. But I am going to go ahead and end it here. We have got a lot of beads coming up. A lot of beads coming up. So I'm going to go ahead, show you guys some of those beads. And while I'm showing you those, try to get this set back up in a way that makes sense to actually continue on. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. What fucking number is that? I didn't even look. Number 2. So we will be right back. Don't go anywhere.